My sister laughed when I invited her to my award ceremony. Not a polite laugh, not a sorry, I can't laugh. A laugh that said my invitation was a joke. She leaned back in her chair, eyes half on her phone, and said, "We don't have time for stupid awards." My mom didn't look up from the sink. My dad just shrugged like the conversation was already over. Then my sister added, almost casually, "I'm going to a concert that night." My mom said, "That's nice." My dad said, "Don't blame us, we're busy too." I stood there holding the printed invite like it was something fragile, like if I squeezed it too hard, it would crumble and prove them right. I waited for the part where someone asked what the award was for. No one did. I waited for the part where someone said they were proud of me. No one did. So I smiled, small, controlled, like this was normal. "All right," I said. And then I walked out of the kitchen before my face could betray me. In my room, I stared at the invite again. The words looked too formal for my life. My name, the event location, the time, a line that said it would be filmed and broadcast for a local segment that sometimes got picked up online. It was the kind of thing families kept, framed, mentioned later. In my family, it would be forgotten before the evening news. I didn't cry. Crying required believing it could have been different. Instead, I opened my laptop and went back to work, because that's what I did. I worked, quietly, consistently, without applause. For years, I had been the invisible one, the reliable one, the one who didn't cause problems. My sister caused plenty, and somehow that made her interesting. She could cancel plans last minute and get forgiven. I could cancel once and it became a lecture. She could brag and get celebrated. I could achieve something real and get a nod, like I had done my homework. The unfairness wasn't new. What was new was this award. Because it wasn't a participation trophy, it wasn't a nice effort certificate. It was for work I'd done that had changed things, measurable things, the kind people outside my family respected, the kind of respect that made my family uncomfortable. I thought about not going, about skipping the whole thing and saving myself the humiliation of sitting in a room where the empty seats would feel louder than applause. Then I remembered my sister's laugh, and something inside me settled. Fine, I thought. If they didn't want to show up for my moment, they would be forced to witness it anyway. The week before the ceremony, my sister acted like nothing had happened. She posted selfies, she talked about outfits for the concert, she complained about traffic and people and her job, even though she barely held one for more than a few months. My mom listened, my dad nodded. They offered solutions they never offered me. When I mentioned I had to be at the venue early for rehearsal, my mom said, "Don't stress yourself out." Not, "Good luck." Not, "We'll be thinking of you." Just, "Don't stress yourself out." I learned to stop trying. I didn't bring up the invite again. I didn't remind them. I didn't argue. I prepared. I ironed my outfit, checked the directions twice, printed my schedule, and set my phone on Do Not Disturb the night before. Because I knew what would happen if I didn't. I'd get a last minute call asking where I'd left something, a request to pick something up, a sudden emergency that would somehow be my responsibility. My family had a talent for making my important days feel like inconveniences, so I removed their access to my time. The day of the ceremony, I left the house without telling anyone, not out of spite, out of strategy. My sister was in the living room, curled into the couch, laughing at a video. My mom was in the hallway folding laundry. My dad was in the garage, doing something that looked busy but never actually ended. I passed through like a ghost. No one noticed. In my car, I exhaled, long and slow. I didn't feel sadness anymore. I felt focus. At the venue, everything moved quickly. A coordinator led me backstage. They checked my name, they clipped a badge to my outfit, they gave me a bottle of water and a list of cues. Someone asked, "Are your guests here already?" I almost said yes, reflex, years of pretending. Then I said, "No, it's just me." The person's expression softened, but they didn't pity me. They just nodded, like that was a normal answer. "That's okay," they said. "You're going to do great." It was such a simple sentence, and it hit harder than it should have, because it was what I had wanted my family to say. Backstage, I watched other winners arrive. Some came with parents, some with partners, some with coworkers waving phones and taking pictures. It didn't make me jealous, it made me calm because I realized something. The people cheering weren't cheering because they shared DNA. They were cheering because they cared. Family could be a gift, or it could be a role people used when it benefited them. I had been giving my family the gift version while they treated it like a role. The ceremony began. Lights dimmed, music played, applause rolled like a wave across the room. I sat in my seat, hands folded, posture straight, face composed. I didn't scan the crowd anymore. There was no point. I had already accepted the truth. Then the host announced the category, and I heard my name. When my name echoed through the speakers, I stood up without hesitation. I had practiced this moment in my head so many times that it felt strangely familiar, like I was stepping into a scene I'd rehearsed alone for years. The applause grew as I walked toward the stage. Not thunderous, but steady, respectful, real. I climbed the steps, smiled at the host, and faced the audience. A camera light blinked from the front row. I remembered the broadcast. I remembered my sister's laugh. And I felt something almost like gratitude, because she had accidentally made me stop caring what my family thought. The host started reading the summary of my work. They mentioned the project, the measurable results, the impact. It wasn't exaggerated. It wasn't sugar-coated. It was factual. And that made it powerful. Behind me, a screen displayed my name in large letters. A photo of me from my professional profile appeared next to it. It looked like someone else's life. Not because it wasn't mine, because my family had never made space for it. The host handed me the award. It was heavier than I expected. Solid. Real. Not a nice try token. I gave a short speech. Calm. Simple. I thanked mentors. I thanked colleagues. I thanked the community partners who had taken a risk on my ideas. I didn't mention my family, not because I was bitter, because they weren't part of this story. When I finished, the applause returned and I stepped off stage. Backstage, people shook my hand. A woman from a local business journal asked if I'd be available for a quick interview. I said yes. We stood near a plain backdrop while she asked questions. "What does this award mean to you?" I paused, just long enough. Then I said, "It means I can trust my work, even when no one claps for it." She blinked, surprised by the honesty. Then she smiled, like she understood. The interview ended. I took a few photos. I accepted congratulations from strangers who somehow felt warmer than people who shared my last name. Later, driving home, I kept my phone face down in the passenger seat. I didn't want the noise to touch this moment. At a red light, my phone vibrated anyway. Even through the car's hum, I felt it. I waited until I got home. When I opened the door, the house was quiet. My sister wasn't there, concert night. My parents weren't there either. Probably dinner, probably something that would be described later as, "We were so busy." I walked into my room, placed the award on my desk, and sat down. Then I turned my phone over. The screen was full. Missed calls, notifications, messages stacking on messages. My mom, "Why is your name on TV?" My dad, "Call me." My sister, "Is this you?" Another message from my sister, "Answer, seriously." Then my mom again, "We didn't know it was like that." Then my dad, "This is going viral on Facebook." I stared at the screen, feeling nothing for a moment. Then I laughed. Not a happy laugh. A quiet laugh that sounded like relief, because they hadn't shown up, but they were watching anyway. I didn't reply that night. I took a shower. I ate something small. I stared at my award like it might disappear if I looked away. I slept with my phone on silent. In the morning, I woke up to knocking. Not gentle knocking. the kind that says the person expects the door to open quickly. I sat up, hair messy, face bare, still in the quiet afterglow of finally being seen. The knocking came again. I opened the door. My mom stood in front, eyes wide, like she'd discovered I had been living a secret life. My dad was behind her, hands in his pockets, expression tense. My sister stood slightly to the side, wearing last night's makeup like armor, her mouth set in a line that was trying to look neutral. They all spoke at once. "We didn't know. Why didn't you tell us? That was you on the screen. I saw the clip everywhere." I held up a hand. Not aggressively, just calmly. They stopped. My sister's eyes flicked past me into my room, searching, like she expected the award to be on display already, like a prop she could claim. My mom asked, softer now, "Why didn't you tell us it was this big?" I looked at her, then at my dad, then at my sister. And I said the simplest truth. "I did tell you. I invited you." My mom's face tightened. My dad cleared his throat. My sister scoffed like she was trying to brush it off. "That was different," she said. "You made it sound smaller." I didn't argue. I just stepped aside and let them in. Not because I wanted them close, because I wanted them to see the difference between how they treated my life and how the world treated my work. They walked into my room like it was unfamiliar territory. My sister's eyes landed on the award on my desk. She moved toward it automatically, like gravity pulled her. "Wow," she said, and reached out. I gently moved the award closer to me, not snatching it, not dramatic, just a quiet repositioning. Her hands hung in the air for a second, then dropped. My mom looked offended, like I had done something rude. My dad asked, "So what happens now?" That question revealed everything. Not "how do you feel?" Not "are you okay?" What happens now? Meaning, how does this affect us? My sister stepped closer and smiled. Too quick, too polished. "This is great. Like, honestly, good for you. But you could have told us sooner." I nodded. Then I said, "You had the same information everyone else did." My mom frowned. "That's not fair." I tilted my head slightly. "Fair would have been you showing up." Silence. It wasn't the silence of people who felt guilty. It was the silence of people who felt exposed. My sister changed tactics. Okay, can we just move past it? We're here now." I watched her face. The way she made "we're here now" sound like she was doing me a favor. Then my mom said something I'll never forget. "We're proud of you," she said. But her voice didn't match the words. It sounded like a sentence she thought she should say. My dad nodded, like he was following a script. My sister added, "Yeah, obviously." And in that moment, I realized something painfully clear. They weren't proud. They were nervous. Because now other people were watching me. And that meant other people were watching them. Over the next week, my family became strangely attentive. My mom started texting me in the morning, asking how my day was going. My dad asked questions about my work he had never asked before. My sister posted the clip of my award on her social media with a caption like she had been there, like she had supported me the whole time. "Proud of my sister," she wrote. "I saw it because a coworker sent it to me with a simple message. Is this your sister?" I stared at the post. The clip was cropped to show my name, my face, the moment the host handed me the award. My sister's caption sat above it like a theft. And people were responding. "So cool. Your family must be so proud. She's amazing. Talent runs in the family." My sister replied with heart emojis and smiling faces, soaking up attention that wasn't hers. I didn't comment. I didn't call her out. I took a screenshot. Then I saved it. Not because I planned to start a fight, because I had learned something about my family. They only respected what they could use, and if they were suddenly trying to use me, I needed to protect myself. At work, things shifted too. My award wasn't just a trophy, it was a signal. People who had been politely dismissive before started calling me the expert. A director asked if I'd consider leading a new initiative. A recruiter from another company reached out, and one email stood out among the others. It was from a regional organization that had real influence: grants, partnerships, public contracts. They wanted to bring me in as a consultant on a project that would expand across multiple cities. The pay was good. The visibility was huge. I read the email twice, then sat back in my chair. This wasn't just recognition, it was leverage. I didn't tell my family about the email. I didn't tell anyone outside of work. I responded professionally, scheduled a call, and continued my life like nothing had changed because I was learning to move differently. The more my family tried to pull me close, the more I felt the need to step back. My sister started calling me, which was rare. At first, she acted friendly. Then she started dropping little comments. Now that you're like known, you should help me too. Help you how? I wanted to ask, but I stayed calm and let her talk. My friend's company is hiring. You could put in a good word. People listen to you now. I said, I'll think about it. A day later, she called again. My landlord is raising rent. Do you think you could talk to someone? You're connected. I said, I'm busy this week. She sighed dramatically, like I was being selfish. Then she said, Don't get weird about this. We're family. That sentence again. The same sentence my family used whenever they wanted access without responsibility. I didn't argue. I just said, I have to go. And after I hung up, I opened a folder on my laptop. I titled it Boundaries. Then I created a document, and I started writing what I would and wouldn't do. Because revenge, I was learning, isn't about punishment, it's about control. The phone call with the regional organization went better than I expected. They had seen the broadcast, they had read about my work. They wanted someone who could deliver results without drama. They didn't care about my family, they cared about outcomes. At the end of the call, the director said, We'd like to move forward. We'll send the contract today. A contract. A clean document that described expectations, authority, pay, and timelines. Everything my family avoided. I thanked them and ended the call. Then I sat still for a moment, letting the weight of it settle. I had options now, not imaginary options like maybe one day I'll leave, real ones. A path that didn't require permission. That afternoon, my mom invited me to dinner. Not a casual, we're eating text, an actual invitation, as if she was trying to prove she knew how to show up now. When I arrived, my sister was already there, sitting at the table like she owned the room. She smiled when she saw me, but it wasn't warm. It was calculated. Dinner started politely. My mom asked about my week. My dad asked about the award stuff. My sister waited. Then, halfway through dinner, she dropped it. So, she said, I've been thinking. My mom immediately perked up like her daughter was about to give a speech. My sister continued, You know how you're getting all this attention now. It's honestly kind of perfect timing. I said nothing. She glanced at my parents, then back to me. I want to start something, like a business, and you could be the face of it. My mom smiled. My dad nodded slowly. I kept my expression neutral. My sister leaned forward. Not like you do all the work, but your name would open doors. There it was, the truth. Not, I'm inspired by you. Not, I'm proud. You're useful. My mom said, That's a great idea. You two could work together. My dad added, It's family. You should support each other. I set my fork down carefully. I asked, What exactly would the business be? My sister hesitated, then waved a hand. Something in your field, consulting maybe. People pay for that, right? I nodded. Then I asked, And what would you contribute? She blinked. Networking, branding, the fun stuff. I looked at my parents. They waited. They expected me to say yes, to shrink my life into something my sister could hold. I took a breath and said, no. It wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. It was final. My sister's face flushed. My mom stared like I'd said something cruel. My dad frowned. Why not? I said, because you're asking for my credibility, not my partnership. My sister snapped, wow, you're really letting this go to your head. I didn't react. I said, you laughed at my ceremony invite. My mom opened her mouth, then closed it. My dad shifted in his chair. My sister tried to scoff, but it came out thin. That was a joke, she said. I nodded. It didn't feel like one. Silence pressed down on the table. My mom tried to soften it. Let's not fight. I said, I'm not fighting, I'm choosing. My sister muttered, unbelievable. And that's when I realized, in my family, boundaries were treated like betrayal, which meant I was finally doing something right. After that dinner, the atmosphere changed. Not dramatically. Worse. Quietly. My mom stopped texting good morning. My dad stopped asking questions. My sister stopped pretending. The next time I visited, my sister was in the living room, and she didn't greet me. She just spoke loudly enough for me to hear. Some people forget where they came from. My mom didn't correct her. My dad pretended to be busy. I watched them, and something inside me went still because I recognized the pattern. They liked me when I was useful. They punished me when I had self-respect. At home, I opened the contract from the organization and read every line. Then I forwarded it to a lawyer, not because I didn't trust the organization, because I was done living without structure. The lawyer reviewed it, suggested small changes, and told me it was solid. When I signed, I felt a quiet thrill, not revenge thrill, freedom. A week later, the organization announced the project publicly and listed me as the lead consultant. My name was on their website, my photo was in their post, my role was clear. And within hours, my sister called. I didn't answer. She called Ben. I didn't answer. Then my mom called. I answered that one. Her voice was sweet in a way that made my stomach tighten. Hi, she said. We saw the announcement. I said, okay. A pause. Then she said, your sister is really upset. She feels like you're pushing her away. I stayed calm. I'm not pushing her away. I'm stepping back. My mom's voice sharpened slightly. But she's your sister. I said, and she laughed at me. My mom sighed. You're holding on to that? I said, yes. Another pause. Then my mom said, well, your aunt is having a party next month. Your sister told everyone you'd probably be there. She's been telling people about your award, too. They're excited to meet you. Meet me. Like a celebrity. Like a tool. I said, I'll think about it. My mom rushed in. It would mean a lot if you came. People want to celebrate you. I didn't say the obvious truth that they wanted to celebrate the version of me that made them look good. Instead, I said, I'm busy. After the call, my sister texted me. Don't embarrass me, it said. I stared at the message. Then I typed back, I'm not responsible for your image. I sent it. Then I turned my phone off. That weekend, I focused on my new project, meetings, plans, strategy. I stayed busy in a way that felt clean, not chaotic. And the more I built outside my family, the smaller their control felt. Then one afternoon, my coworker called me and sounded uncomfortable. Hey, she said, this is awkward, but your sister emailed our office. My stomach dropped slightly. What did she say? I asked. My coworker hesitated. She introduced herself as your manager. I went very still. She said you're too overwhelmed and she's handling inquiries for you now. I closed my eyes. Then I opened them because now it wasn't just emotional. Now it was professional. And in the professional world, people like my sister don't get to play pretend, not if I had anything to say about it. I asked my coworker to forward the email. When it landed in my inbox, I read it slowly. My sister had used confident language, professional tone, fake authority. She had signed it with her full name and a title that didn't exist. Talent Relations, it said. I almost laughed. Then I remembered how many times I had stayed quiet to keep peace, and I felt something different. Not rage, clarity. I didn't call my sister. I didn't scream. I didn't run to my parents. I handled it the way adults handle things. I responded from my official email address, copying the relevant contacts. The message was short. Hi, this person does not represent me in any capacity. Please disregard her email. All inquiries should come directly to me. That was it. No insults, no drama, just reality. Then I called the organization's director. I apologized briefly for the confusion. He sounded more amused than angry. It happens, he said. We deal with weird stuff all the time. You handled it cleanly. Cleanly. That word made my chest feel lighter. After I got off the phone, I turned my phone back on. My sister had sent 3 messages. Why would you do that? You made me look stupid. Call me now. Then my mom texted, Your sister is crying. My dad texted, We need to talk. I stared at the messages and felt the old pressure trying to return. The family pressure. The emotional labor they always assigned to me. Fix it, smooth it, make it easier. I didn't do any of that. I waited until the evening, then I drove to my parents' house. When I walked in, my sister was on the couch, eyes red, arms folded like a child who had been told no. My mom stood near the kitchen with that tight expression she wore when she wanted me to apologize. My dad sat in his chair, jaw set. I didn't sit down. I said, You told people you were my manager. My sister snapped. I was helping you. I said, You were impersonating authority. My mom raised her hands. Let's calm down. I looked at my mom. Why are you telling me to calm down? I didn't do anything. My dad finally spoke. Your sister was just trying to support you. I nodded slowly. Support would have been coming to my ceremony. Silence. My sister stood up, voice rising. You're obsessed with that ceremony. I said, No, I'm aware of what it revealed. My sister's eyes flashed. You think you're better than us now. I said, I think I'm responsible for my own life. My mom's voice cracked with frustration. Why are you being like this? We're family. I let that sentence hang in the air. Then I said, Family doesn't mean access without respect. My sister tried to laugh, but it sounded shaky. So what, you're cutting us off? I shook my head. No, I'm setting rules. My dad scoffed. Rules in a family? I said, yes. I reached into my bag and pulled out a printed page. Not a dramatic document, a simple list. Boundaries. I handed it to my mom. She read the first line and frowned. No one represents me professionally. The next line. No one posts my achievements online without asking. The next. No one volunteers my time, money, or connections. My sister snatched it from my mom and read it fast, getting angrier with every line. This is ridiculous, she said. I said, it's necessary. My mom's eyes narrowed. So we have to ask permission to be proud of you? I said, you have to ask permission to use me. My sister crumples the page in her fist. I didn't react. I just said, uncrumple it or don't. These boundaries exist either way. That was the moment my sister realized something. She couldn't intimidate me because I wasn't trying to win their approval anymore. I was protecting my life. and she didn't know how to fight that. The weeks after that confrontation were quieter. My mom stopped calling daily. My dad stopped sending "we need to talk" texts. My sister went silent completely. At first, the silence felt like punishment. Then it felt like peace. I poured myself into the project. The work was intense, but it was honest. People expected results, not emotional compliance. I delivered, and with every completed milestone, my confidence solidified. Not the loud kind of confidence, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself. One day, I received an invitation to speak at a professional event, a panel, a real one. I almost deleted the email out of reflex, like I didn't belong in those spaces. Then I remembered the ceremony. I remembered the broadcast, and I accepted. The event was held in a clean conference center with bright lights and name tags and people who shook hands like they meant it. I sat on the panel and spoke clearly, calmly, professionally. Afterward, attendees lined up to talk. A few asked for business cards, a few asked for advice. One woman asked, "How did you get so composed? You seem unshakable." I smiled slightly. Practice. It wasn't a lie. Later that night, my mom called. I considered not answering, but I did. She sounded tired. "Your aunt said she saw you online again. Another video." I said, "Okay." My mom hesitated. "We've been thinking maybe we should come to one of your events." I stayed quiet for a moment, not to punish her, to let the reality settle. Then I said, "If you want to support me, you can, but it can't be because other people are watching." My mom's voice tightened. "We are your parents. Of course we want to support you." I said, "Then show up without needing proof first." Silence. Then my mom said softly, "We didn't realize." I believed her, and it still didn't change the past. I said, "I know." A week later, my sister reached out. A single text. "Can we talk?" I stared at it. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Part of me wanted to say yes, just to see if she had changed. So I replied, "What about?" She wrote back, "I didn't mean to hurt you." That was the closest thing to an apology I had ever gotten from her. I didn't rush to forgive. I wrote, "You hurt me anyway." Minutes passed. Then she replied, "I was jealous." I paused. Jealousy, I realized, was her way of admitting I mattered. In a twisted way, it was validation. But I didn't need it anymore. I wrote, "Jealousy doesn't justify disrespect." She didn't reply. And that told me everything. Because real change isn't a confession, it's behavior. A few days later, my aunt's party happened. My mom texted me, "Everyone asked where you were." I replied, "I was working." Then I put my phone away. Because I wasn't going to attend events where my presence was a trophy someone else got to carry. I had spent too many years being used as scenery. Now I chose my own stage. Months later, the project wrapped successfully. The organization sent a public thank you post listing partners and naming me as a key lead. The director emailed me privately. "We want to renew your contract for the next phase," he wrote. "Also, another organization asked for your contact. They specifically requested you." I read the message twice. Then I smiled. Not because it proved my family wrong, because it proved my life was mine. That weekend, I visited my parents' house for the first time in a while. Not because I missed the tension, because I was curious. I wanted to see what my boundaries had changed. My mom opened the door and looked at me like she was measuring her words. My dad stood behind her, quieter than usual. My sister wasn't there. My mom said, "Do you want tea?" I nodded. We sat in the kitchen, the same space where my ceremony invite had been laughed at. Now the room felt different. Not warmer, just less entitled. My mom poured tea and said, "We've been trying." I waited. She continued, "Your father and I talked. We didn't show up for you the way we should have." It was a small sentence, but it was more accountability than I'd ever heard from her. My dad cleared his throat. "I thought awards were just noise," he said. "I didn't understand." I looked at him. I didn't let the apology erase the years, but I didn't reject it either. I said, "I wasn't asking you to understand. I was asking you to respect that it mattered to me." My mom nodded slowly. Then she asked, "Are you happy?" That question surprised me because it wasn't about image. It wasn't about bragging. It was about me. I answered honestly, "I'm calmer." My mom's eyes softened. "That's good." My dad said quietly, "We saw you on another panel last week. We watched the whole thing." I paused. "Why?" I asked. He hesitated. "Because you spoke well." Not because we were embarrassed, not because people were talking, because I spoke well. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. After tea, my mom walked me to the door. As I stepped outside, she said, "Your sister didn't want to come today. She said she doesn't know how to talk to you." I looked back at my mom. She can start with respect. My mom nodded. I drove home and felt an unexpected lightness. Not because my family had suddenly become healthy, but because my boundaries had created a new truth. They couldn't dismiss me anymore without consequences. They couldn't use me anymore without permission. They couldn't rewrite the story without being corrected by reality. That was the revenge. Not the award, not the broadcast, not the attention. The revenge was this. I stopped begging for a seat at their table, and I built my own. If you're listening to this and you're waiting for your family to validate you, stop waiting. Invite them once, then watch what they do. If they laugh, if they dismiss, if they act like your effort is an inconvenience, let them. Go anyway. Do it anyway. Build anyway. Because one day your success will be too visible to ignore. And when they finally look up, when they finally pretend they were always proud, you'll already be somewhere they can't reach. Calm, quiet, free. And by then, they'll understand. Too late.